Hello and welcome. Today, we will listen to an engaging story titled The Legacy of Al Hayba. I recommend following the text on the screen while listening. This way, you can improve both your listening and reading skills. If you're ready, let's embark on Alia's gripping journey as she confronts her past. Let's begin the story. Title: The Legacy of Al Hayba. Chapter 1: The Return. The road to Al Hayba was rugged, winding through the towering mountains that divided Lebanon and Syria. The dry summer wind carried the scent of pine and earth, whispering stories of the past through the valleys. A dusty black SUV maneuvered through the narrow paths, its tires crunching against the gravel, sending up small clouds of dust with every turn. Inside the vehicle, Alia sat still, her fingers anxiously gripping the fabric of her dress. The journey felt endless, each curve in the road tightening the knots in her stomach. The land was familiar, yet distant, like a memory that had begun to fade with time. Beside her, Karim, her 5-year-old son, slept with his head resting on her lap. His small hands clutched his worn-out stuffed bear, the only object that made him feel safe in this unfamiliar world. His rhythmic breathing was a temporary solace in the storm brewing within Alia's heart. The driver, a stern-faced man with sharp eyes, stole a glance at her through the rearview mirror. "We are almost there, madam." His voice was void of emotion. Alia exhaled deeply, staring at the road ahead. The towering stone walls of the Sheikh Al-Jabal estate appeared in the distance, standing like an indomitable fortress against the backdrop of the mountains. It was a place of power, tradition, and fear, a place she had once called home. The car slowed as they approached the heavy iron gates. A line of men, armed and watchful, stood at the entrance, their expressions unreadable. The leader among them stepped forward, nodding curtly to the driver before turning his piercing gaze to Alia. "Madam, Sheikh Jabal is expecting you." She took a deep breath, steadying herself before opening the door. As she stepped onto the gravel path, the heat of the afternoon sun pressed against her skin. She adjusted her sunglasses, pushing her shoulders back. She refused to show weakness. Chapter 2: Facing the Past. Inside the grand hall, the scent of burning oud filled the air, mingling with the dust that clung to the heavy velvet drapes. The high ceilings and intricate chandeliers cast an almost regal ambience, yet there was an undeniable weight in the atmosphere. Sheikh Al-Jabal sat at the head of a long wooden table, his presence dominating the room. He was a man who commanded loyalty and fear in equal measure. His dark eyes, sharp and calculating, locked onto Alia the moment she stepped inside. "You took your time coming back," he said, his voice steady, devoid of warmth. Alia met his gaze with unwavering defiance. "I wasn't given much of a choice." Nahid Sheikh Al-Jabal, Jabal's mother, stood beside her son, her posture rigid, her expression unreadable. Time had not softened her. If anything, it had only made her presence more formidable. "Your place was always here," Nahid said coldly. "You cannot erase your blood." Alia's jaw tightened. "I left because I had to. My son deserves a different life." Jabal's gaze flickered to Karim, who peeked out from behind Alia's legs, his small fingers clutching her dress. A flicker of emotion, something unreadable passed through Jabal's eyes, before his face hardened once more. "He is a Sheikh Al-Jabal," he stated firmly. "He belongs here." Alia clenched her fists at her sides. "He is also my son, and I will decide what is best for him." A tense silence filled the room. The power struggle between them was palpable, an unspoken battle unfolding in the dimly lit hall. Chapter 3: Shadows of the Past. Days passed in Al Hayba, each one blending into the next. Alia moved through the grand estate like a ghost, trapped in a place that had once been hers. She observed the men who swore loyalty to Jabal, the silent codes they followed, the unspoken hierarchy that governed every aspect of their existence. She spent mornings wandering through the gardens with Karim, watching him chase butterflies while she sipped coffee under the shade of an old olive tree. In the afternoons, she found herself drawn to the kitchen, where the scent of freshly baked bread filled the air. The old cook, Fairs, greeted her with warmth, offering her a plate of stuffed grape leaves. "You used to love these as a girl," Fairs said, her wrinkled hand setting down the dish with care. Alia smiled faintly, memory surfacing. I still do. But even in these quiet moments, the weight of the past loomed over her. She could hear the hushed conversations of the men discussing security threats, the whisper of rifles being cleaned in the armory. Danger was never far in Al Hayba. One evening, as she wandered through the stone corridors, she overheard hushed voices coming from Jabal's private study. She pressed herself against the cold stone wall, listening intently. There is a traitor among us, Şehi, Jabal's most trusted cousin, said in a low, urgent tone. Jabal's voice remained calm, but there was a dangerous edge to it. Find him before he finds us. Alia's heart pounded in her chest. She knew this world too well, betrayal was never met with mercy. That night, she locked her bedroom door, pulling Karim close to her. This was not a place for a child. She had to find a way out. Chapter 4, A Dangerous Game. Jabal summoned Alia to the terrace overlooking the valley. The night air was cool, carrying the scent of jasmine from the gardens below. He stood at the railing, staring out at the darkened landscape. You want to leave, he said, not turning to look at her. Alia stepped forward. I don't belong here. He finally turned, his expression unreadable. You belonged here the moment you married my brother. The moment you bore his son, she sighed. I didn't choose this life. His lips curled slightly. No one chooses Al Hayba. Al Hayba chooses you. Chapter 5, The Betrayal. The inevitable happened. The rival family made its move under the cover of night. Gunfire echoed through the mountains, sending birds scattering into the sky. Alia clutched Karim, hiding him in the depths of the house. She listened as Jabal and his men retaliated, their voices blending with the chaos outside. When the dust settled, the battle had been won, but at a cost. Men had died, blood had been spilled, and Alia knew this cycle would never end. She had to make a choice. Chapter 6, The Decision. That night, she found Jabal in his study, exhaustion evident in his eyes. I have to leave, she said. He nodded slowly. I know. She was surprised. You're not going to stop me? He exhaled deeply. I could force you to stay. But I won't. A long silence stretched between them. She had expected resistance, but instead, she saw something else in his eyes, understanding, perhaps even regret. Take care of him, she whispered, glancing at Karim's sleeping form. Jabal nodded. Always. As she turned to leave, his voice stopped her. Alia, this is your home, whether you admit it or not.